What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the LTL podcast. I am your host, Bryan. It's Saturday night. It's August 12th, 2023, and this is episode 54. We're going to talk Bryan Kohberger as there's been some breaking, well, not really breaking news, but I think this has been talked about over the last couple of days. As you know, I have been kind of bouncing around a little bit, introducing some new content to the channel. We've been following the timepiece gentleman, Anthony Farah, saga that's been going on. I hope that you're all enjoying those videos and those lives that we've done. I hope you had the ability to go over, if you've been interested in this potential white collar crime, allegedly. I was over on a neighboring stream the other night, hanging out with some of my friends. I was asked as a guest to be on that panel, and I was very thankful for that. We had an amazing interview over at JJ's Watch Hangout. If you want to continue, in that saga, we actually had a gentleman on that was part of the TPG circle and actually had been called out by Anthony. And he came on my friend JJ's live the other night and kind of told his story. He gave us 2 hours during that interview. I got to answer questions, and I think that the interview went flawless. At one point, there were over 1,000 people watching that stream. So I want to congratulate JJ. He did an amazing job being the host, allowing me and giving me the honor to go over there and hang out. And we had our buddy Ali on there, and it just really cranked. The interview was a really great interview. Before I end the stream tonight, I'll make sure to drop that interview if you want to go over and watch it. By the way, we are streaming to 2 platforms tonight. We're streaming obviously here to LTL Podcast. So if you're on the LTL Rewind channel, make sure to come over here and subscribe. And if you're on LTL Podcast, go over and subscribe to my Rewind channel. All the affiliated links are pinned to the top of the chat. I really would appreciate all the subs over there on either channel. So this is the first time I've done this, the dual stream. So we're going to get into Kohberger tonight. But before I do that, I haven't gone live in a little while. So I want to look at the chat, bring up some of the names in the chat and welcome them in here. Let's see. Let's go all the way back up. Quicker Than Drawing here. An old buddy of mine says, I have subscribed to the Rewind channel. Thank you, Quicker. I appreciate you. AG is here, and she said that she's here for it. She's here for it. I appreciate that. JD's here. He said, let's get it, bro. Thank you so much. Diana's here. JD said, thanks for everything that you're doing with this story. Absolutely. Thank you so much for hanging out on LTL Podcast. Just Debbie's here. It's good to see her. Shell Jones, a channel member over here. She says, hi, live finally. I've been patiently waiting. Thank you so much. That's really good to hear. Michelle's over here hanging out. Brittany B in the chat. She says, hello, everyone. Let's rock this. Did you all like the new intro music? Did you like the new intro? I eventually am going to work with someone to get like a slick intro together, but I'm really loving the new vibe of the music. You know, gotta shake it up sometime. Danielle's here. Good to see you. Happy Tappy is here. New name in the crowd. Thanks for hanging out. MJC is here. Good to see you as well. Jethro Troll is here. He says, what does live chat has been moved mean? I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. Terry Dean's in the house. She said, I'll catch you later if you're still on. Happy Saturday, everyone. And Monique is here as well. Good to see Monique hanging out. And AJ still loved the new intro. Great. And Lee and Susan Trainer is here. Hello, Bryan. Good to see you live. Well, it's good to be back. And I hope that you're enjoying the lives. I've kind of cut down a little bit. And I've really been focusing on short form content. And I hope that you're enjoying those little mini series that I've been doing, the little LTL podcast mini series. This week, I will be finishing. And if you're a channel member, you've already got a sneak peek on my next mini cast, my little mini series of Gilgo Beach. Rex Heuermann, the alleged Long Island serial killer, will be releasing that hopefully sometime this week. I'm going to put some real work into it, get it finalized, and I'll be dropping it sometime this week. But if you're a channel member, you've had the sneak preview. I've given about 30 seconds, and that's what I've been doing. So if you want to join the memberships, you go down and hit the membership below. Join. My memberships are $1.99. It gets you introduced into all the exclusive behind-the-scenes content. I do members-only live streams, and I drop teaser trailers of all my next videos. So Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, please support the channel in any way. All right, let's get into the cast this evening. I see some other names filling up in the chat. Brenda's here, Frenchie's here, Shell is here, Crime Sleuthin is here, Lucky Phil is here, Jody is here. She says she's new, and I'm catching one. Well, Jody, thanks for hanging out. Matt is in the chat as well, and we'll keep moving on here. All right, so let's get into Kohberger. What we're first going to do here is let's go back a little bit. Now, we know about the alibi that was released from the defense. I did a couple streams about it, the driving around streams, just driving around. But Daily Mail just put together a new montage here, and I do want to play that just to get some history as to where we were. And then I'll take you up to the DNA evidence that's being questioned. We'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll go from there. So let's look at this first. Bryan Kohberger has said, quoted, "I was driving alone." He's just driving alone, driving around. We had some fun with that. But let's play this from the Daily Mail, and then we'll get into the DNA evidence.
Bryan Kohberger has an alibi from the night of the Moscow, Idaho murders, and it will be a crucial part of his defense strategy, one that his team hopes will be enough to acquit him of quadruple homicide. But how strong is it? This is, and I quote, what his lawyers said in recent court documents. Mr. Kohberger was out driving alone. That is the alibi. Now, it is just my opinion, but it sounds flimsy at best. He was just out for a drive, and he can't say exactly where he drove, but claims he knows exactly where he wasn't. Yep, and that was at the victim's home. I think the alibi is vague, but let's really break this down bit by bit. How effective is an alibi defense in a trial, and specifically how effective this one of Kohberger's could be? To do that, we turn to former federal prosecutor and the president of West Coast Trial Lawyers, Nima Rahmani.
States require the defense to provide notice of an alibi defense if that's something that they're going to present at trial. So in this case, it could be a real alibi, or it can be a situation where the defense is really cross-examining the prosecution's evidence.
So part of this is just procedural. In the future, in order for the defense to say in court that Bryan Kohberger was anywhere but the crime scene that night, they have to file this notice of an alibi defense in advance, even if it is a weak one, which Nima agrees that this alibi seems to be.
This is a tough case for the defense, right? And they're trying to save Bryan Kohberger's life, so they're going to throw everything out there to see what sticks.
Until a verdict is read, we can only speculate as to how a jury will take in the alibi, but let me detail exactly what Kohberger claims to have been doing the night Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Logan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were stabbed to death.
We're going to do this tonight, too. We're going to add Danielle as a new moderator. So, Danielle, congratulations for becoming a moderator here in the chat. You are always so kindly here to support me. So let's give you some moderating privileges there. I trust your decisions, and I appreciate you. So welcome to the moderator group. Okay, let's keep playing through here.
In court documents, his lawyers write, Mr. Kohberger has long had a habit of going for drives alone. Often he would go for drives at night. He did so late on November 12 and into November 13, 2022. Well, that sounds mighty convenient to me. You have to remember, police have gathered a lot of evidence so far, evidence that provided enough probable cause to have Kohberger arrested and charged under the presumption that where he was on the night of November 13, 2022 was allegedly inside the victim's home, committing quadruple murder.
We know that Bryan Kohberger's phone traveled from Washington State to Idaho. It didn't make it all the way to the house where the victims were murdered. And whether that's because Bryan Kohberger wasn't there, or as the prosecution claims, the phone was turned off, on airplane mode, left behind. That's going to be something that's going to be a big issue at trial.
Don't cry.
What Nima is referring to here are felt.
Don't cry, Danielle. You're always here supporting me. You're always very kind to everybody in the chat. You welcome everybody that comes in. You've earned that privilege. You are a huge supporter and always here. And I always notice you in the chat. And again, we'll get there. We'll hand out some other mod wrenches pretty soon. I do have some moderators that are just, tied up at the moment. And it would be nice to have some other moderators as well. So welcome to the group. Don't cry. I hope it's tears of joy. Not anything bad or mean, but yeah, you've earned that. You're always here supporting. You're always very kind to everybody. So thank you so much.
Tower pics that law enforcement gathered showing Kohberger's phone traveling towards Moscow, Idaho the night of the murders, suddenly going off the grid and then reappearing sometime after the killings.
So we don't know if there's an actual alibi witness, or the defense is going to argue that because Bryan Kohberger's phone wasn't there, he was not at the scene of the murders. And I think that's why they presented this notice of alibi, to make sure they're not precluded from doing so at trial.
So the defense could argue that since Kohberger's phone can't be placed in the vicinity of the crime scene at the time the crime was being committed, he cannot be placed at the crime scene at the time the crime was being committed. My problem with that is the fact that Kohberger's phone can't be placed anywhere because it was either off or in airplane mode, according to law enforcement. Now, the other thing that his alibi defense seems to be doing is appearing to explain away this alleged footage of Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra traveling from his home in Pullman, Washington to Moscow, Idaho on the night of the murders. So let's go back to that night and talk through what circumstantial evidence law enforcement claims to have, and then put that into context with what we now know about Kohberger's alibi. Police used cell phone tower pings as well as CCTV footage taken from several cameras along the way to track the suspect's movements on the night of the killings. And they mapped out an alleged route that he took during this drive. I am intimately familiar with his supposed drive because I was reporting in Washington and Idaho, and I drove it multiple times. Now, the first sighting that investigators say they have of Kohberger's car on the move was at 2:44 a.m., leaving his Washington State University apartment and heading out of Pullman and towards Moscow, Idaho.
Again, a lot of review here. I mean, it's just nothing new, nothing that we don't know. But I always like to get the perspective here from Daily Mail, and also, it gives us a little bit of rewind, pause to rewind, look back, and then we'll get into the DNA evidence, I promise.
Main road, the Pullman-Moscow highway that connects these two college towns. And just before his vehicle reaches this thoroughfare, police say his phone went off the grid. Now, they believe he turned it off or put it in airplane mode to obscure his location. Now, if his alibi is to be believed, this means he would have just been driving around aimlessly for several hours with no GPS.
They all listen to my streams.
Now, it is roughly 10 miles between Kohberger's home and the crime scene, and at that time of night, there was basically zero traffic, so it shouldn't have taken long to get from point A to point B if you were driving straight there. But Kohberger's alleged movements aren't a direct route, and that may actually, I think, firm up his alibi for a jury. At 3:26 a.m., his car was picked up on camera down this out-of-the-way residential street in Moscow, Idaho. When I drove in the area, I recall thinking this: it's odd. There isn't anything down the 700 block of Indian Hills Road but homes. It's a nice little suburban street, but kind of random. And we presume that Kohberger didn't go there to see anyone along this road because A, he never stopped the car. He was only in the area for 2 minutes before another camera captured his sedan leaving. And B, by his own admission, he doesn't have anyone to corroborate his alibi. So we can deduce he never saw or spoke to anyone there. Now, at the time I was taking the drive, my theory was maybe he just got lost. Since his phone was off, he wouldn't have had access to Waze or Google Maps or anything like this. And the roads in the area are dark and really windy. I got turned around myself multiple times and I was using GPS. But I quickly talked myself out of that theory when I considered this: the claim by police that Kohberger routinely visited the victim's home on 1122 King Road. Cops say his vehicle was spotted in the vicinity of the crime scene some 12 times prior to the murders. Now, if you drive anywhere 12 times, you probably don't need GPS to get there. But now, in light of his alibi, I think it's possible that that random little detour down Indian Hills Road might have been done with a purpose. We know Kohberger was getting his PhD in
Ali Reza is gifted out 10 memberships. Ali, thank you so much for the support. Again, we talked about him earlier. He was in the JJ Watch. Thank you so much, dude. Ali says, have a good show, Bryan. Daddy-daughter day continues here. Absolutely, man. Family always first. Thank you so much for doing that. Yes, I do know there's 2 lives going. Yes, we are streaming to both channels tonight. Isn't that awesome? Streaming to both channels. So yes, we are streaming to both channels. Thank you, Ali. It was a very generous gift. Huge supporter of the channel. It says, new members, there is a large assortment of member-only videos. Take advantage of the free month. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate you. That's awesome. What a nice gift.
Criminology and had a master's in criminal justice.
Yes, 2 streams. Yeah. Again, we're over on the main channel, LTL Podcast, but I am streaming now. I wanted to try it out to the second channel so I won't have to re-upload the episodes over there. And believe it or not, we have a lot of new subscribers on that second channel that don't know about LTL Podcast. So come over here and sub to this channel, LTL Podcast. And if you're on LTL Podcast after the stream, or you can just go up there and click the link right now, subscribe to my second channel, because I'm going to be doing a lot of rewinds and some different material over there as well too. And you're going to want to take advantage of that. All right, let's keep playing through here from
You would
Daily
no
Mail.
doubt understand how important
You're
establishing
all
an
welcome.
alibi can be. Hypothetically, if the suspect was planning on saying he was just driving around,
I'm telling you, they
making
watch
some
my
seemingly
streams.
random turns to nowhere may help that sound more.
Who? Come on, audience. Tell me, who was the first person that started doing that? Just driving around. I'm telling you, it was me. They watched these streams. I'm telling you. I'm only joking. But I was the
Possible.
first one that started doing that.
It will be harder, in my opinion, though, to explain
Oh,
why
I'm
his vehicle was
trying.
then allegedly seen shortly after,
Double dip.
essentially
Double dip, my
casing the
friend.
home. Police claim to have tracked the white Hyundai through CCTV from
Thank
that
you,
random
Jeffrey.
residential neighborhood over to the victim's home. And they say his car was
It
spotted
was me.
driving back and forth around the house
I have the
3
streams.
times
It's
before
fun.
appearing to park somewhere for several minutes, during which time law enforcement believes he entered the home and committed 4 murders. If the jury believes that the car in the footage is Kohberger's, it's going to be a hard sell to convince them that this portion of his journey was just a part of a random drive. Where the house is situated is down a small, out-of-the-way side street that dead ends. There is one way in and one way out, and it's so narrow that only one car can really pass at a time. Honestly, even as I am explaining it to you with video of me doing this drive right here, it doesn't really do it justice. This is just not a place you accidentally turn down or a way to cut through to another home. To get to this home, you need to deliberately go there. If the jury gets to go visit the scene, I think it's game over to convince them that Bryan Kohberger was circling the home multiple times minutes before the murders by happenstance while on a joyride. Plus, the defense will have to contend with this issue of Kohberger's phone going off the grid while driving in Washington and then popping back on sometime after 5 a.m. down a random back road in Idaho.
But I think the defense is really going to attack that cell site evidence, because in their filings, they've also argued that the video surveillance footage of the white Hyundai Elantra is inconsistent with that evidence as well.
Any crime show can tell you that having an alibi that's "I was alone" isn't ideal, so anyone would presumably want a corroborating witness to confirm it. So who is confirming that Kohberger was in his car, alone, driving around all night, not near 1122 King Road? At this juncture, no one. His lawyer's right. Mr. Kohberger is not claiming to be at a specific location at a specific time. At this time, there is not a specific witness to say precisely where Mr. Kohberger was at each moment of the hours between late night November 12, 2022 and early morning November 13, 2022. So to paraphrase, he can't tell you where he was, only where he wasn't, and as of right now, according to his own lawyers, nobody can back that story up. Now, of course, we are still in the discovery phase, and Kohberger's team is continuing to build his case, but it doesn't look like even they expect a witness to materialize to directly back up this alibi. Instead, what his team plans on doing in court is trying to corroborate his alibi through experts. Corroboration of Bryan Kohberger not being at 1122 King may be brought out through cross-examination of the state's witnesses. At this time, Mr. Kohberger cannot be more
I'm going to pause this really quick and kind of respond to this. So Frenchie says, if there's someone else involved, you would think that that would be out by now. I have to agree. And I even see, I mean, there's a lot of I'm sure that you're all in them too, is, all the different Facebook groups. And over the last couple of days, I've seen this kind of come up again about that there has to be other people involved. Like literally people were posting about the corner club again today and showing screenshots of the footage and going, who's this guy? Who's that guy? I'm like, dude, we've been over this like 8 months ago. Like all these people have been cleared. And in my opinion, in my honest opinion, I would think that you have a quadruple homicide. You don't think that the law enforcement agents, the FBI and everybody else that's been involved in this case has not at least talked to everybody in and around that area within maybe like a 2 or 3 mile area, that they haven't knocked on all of those doors around that surrounding area, looked at video cam, security cam footage, talked to witnesses in and out of that area. I mean, come on, that whole place has been definitely canvassed. I mean, they have talked to everybody. Something else would have come out, in my opinion, by now.
Specific about the possible witnesses and exactly what they will say.
It's not a real alibi defense. It's more sort of cross-examining the government's witnesses and arguing by inference that because the phone wasn't there, Kohberger wasn't there either. He was somewhere in Idaho where his phone was.
Again, we circle back to the cell tower pings and that CCTV footage. In pretrial motions, the defense has already taken issue with the science here. Specifically, they believe there's a big problem with how police were able to identify this blurry photo of a moving car as a specific white Hyundai Elantra. They're gambling here that someone on the jury won't buy that it's definitively Kohberger's car seen near 1122 King Road, which, as far as we're aware of right now, is the only thing that puts him at the scene of the crime at the time of the murders. Now, a way for Kohberger's team to get a leg up at trial is to be able to prepare for the state's strategy as early as possible. But unfortunately, the prosecution prepared for this, and they put up a huge roadblock when he was indicted through a grand jury. His lawyers recently filed a motion to vacate this indictment. And what I mean by that is that his defense team is trying to get the formal charges dropped, take us back to square one, and force a probable cause hearing. Bear with me here because it's really legally for a minute.
The only argument against that, Danielle, and I've said this before too, Daniel says, if I was BK and sitting in jail all this time and someone else was involved, I'd be saying the only problem with that is it would confirm your guilt. But he could turn around and say, hey, I was there. I was in the car. This person went into the house. Yeah, you'd be an accessory, but it could, if you knew that you were just being pinged for the murder and they had enough evidence against you, which I feel that they do. And this is going to be an extremely hard case when this goes to trial on both sides. And it's going to be a very interesting case because this case is so high profile. And I feel just all the back and forth that's happened between the defense and the prosecution. It's almost like, something comes out, the defense will outdo them, then the prosecution will outdo them. It's just super, super back and forth. And again, we have to keep in mind, this is chess. It's not checkers. We haven't seen the totality of the prosecution's case yet. So we're going to get that at trial. And I've talked about this before. If you had a deck of cards, we've probably only seen 10 or 20 of them, so everything is not out there yet. And this case continuously gets investigated and discovery gets entered. So let's keep playing through here.
If you've been following this case closely, you'll remember that we were all anticipating this big preliminary hearing in June, one where the prosecution would put up witnesses over the course of several days to determine whether there was enough probable cause to charge Kohberger with quadruple murder. Many of us were then shocked when that didn't happen. Instead, a grand jury was secretly convened, which subsequently indicted Kohberger on those very same charges. Now, if you are not a legal expert, you were probably confused. I know I was.
To proceed to a felony trial, one of two things has to happen. A judge needs to find probable cause at a preliminary hearing, or a grand jury has to return a true bill.
So why then is the defense trying to undo all of that and go through the whole rigmarole of a days-long preliminary hearing? You may think it's because the defense wants or expects a different result. Maybe the judge wouldn't find enough probable cause and Kohberger could go on his merry way. Highly unlikely. But this makes a lot more sense.
It would give the defense an opportunity to examine some of the witnesses, find out what the state intends to do. The defense doesn't think that there's actually a chance that the judge won't find probable cause to move forward. But what they're trying to do is force the prosecution to preview their evidence. And this is generally a mistake. It was one of the big mistakes that the LA District Attorney's Office made in the People versus OJ case.
So like Nima says, the judge is not likely to grant the motion because the burden of proof for a grand jury isn't beyond a reasonable doubt, like with a jury trial. It's simply probable cause. And in this case, the grand jury already found that there was enough of it to send the case to trial. But it's the job of the defense team to mount the strongest defense they possibly can. And in an odd way, that means playing the long game and planning for the worst, for Kohberger to lose and for them to fight for him through an appeal.
So sometimes the best defense is a good offense, or sometimes the best defense is to make the prosecution work and have to defend issues on appeal.
We won't have to wait long to hear the judge's ruling on the motion to dismiss the indictment. Bryan will be back in court for a hearing on that and a few other pretrial motions on August 18th. For more true crime content like this, hit like and subscribe.
All right. That's from the Daily Mail. Always love playing their stuff. They always do like these nice little review montages. And it's nice just to go back and look and see where we're at. So now let's fast forward. We saw a new document that was dumped with the defense challenging the DNA evidence. And what I'm going to do here is present my screen. I have some talking screen. I just said screen. Present my screen. I have some talking points here that I want to bring up. And this was so Bryan Kohberger's defense team cast doubts on the DNA evidence. And I'm picked out some talking points from a News Nation article that I'm going to pull up here in a second. So again, Bryan Kohberger defense team is currently questioning the evidence presented by investigators. They are raising concerns about the reality of the genetic genealogy technique that was used by investigators which led to his arrest. So some key points in the article here, and let me just enlarge this a little bit, is one, if everybody's going, well, like what the hell is going on? So essentially they're challenging the DNA evidence. Yeah, Bryan Kohberger's defense team is raising doubts about the DNA evidence used against him in the Idaho murder case. So the unit go on to they challenge the reliability of the genetic genealogy. The defense is questioning the reliability of genetic genealogy. I apologize. I have a stutter when I read, and I have a mild form of dyslexia. So sometimes these words get a little tongue twisted for me because my brain is thinking like way ahead and I'm not slowing down to read. So when I slow myself down and read a little bit better, I can understand and comprehend. So I do apologize. So the technique used to link Kohberger to the crime by creating a DNA profile from his knife sheath found at the scene that matched the profile of Kohberger's dad. And then we have the imperfect nature of science. The defense is arguing that the science behind the GG, I'm just going to say GG so I don't get tongue twisted anymore, is imperfect, and that they are scrutinizing the DNA link that connects Kohberger to the quadruple homicide. So, and then we have doubts about the genealogic match. The defense is suggesting that the G match may not be trustworthy and that they are questioning how the match was obtained. I appreciate that, Raylan. Thank you. It's funny though. People are brutal. They say stuff about my reading abilities in the links all the time. They get pretty brutal, but hey, life goes on. And then the affidavit from Mr. Lee, Dr. Lee Larkin, as we know, that is the new DNA expert that is hired by the defense. The defense has submitted an affidavit from the DNA expert, Dr. Lee Larkin, who argues that the DNA profiles from at-home test companies like Ancestry DNA and 23andMe are not reliable as those from specialized laboratories. And then you have flaws at the in-home test kits. Dr. Larkin highlights that at-home DNA test kits might be too few matches or phantom matches that are not accurate measure of relationships. And then number 7, another talking point in the article is going to be law enforcement use of GG. Law enforcement agencies are increasingly using GG to track suspects, relatives on ancestry websites after a broader range of relatives for investigation. And then finally, number 8, cases of mistaken matches. Larkin points out incidences where GG has been wrong and where law enforcement misused databases. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's all some great talking points from the defense. I know that they're arguing about, releasing how they got that specific profile, how they got the specific profile to match to Kohberger. All those, 23andMe is, all protected. I would say this, and I think this is something where I'm going to say this about the prosecution, and I don't really say this things about the prosecution, but I'm gonna keep it pretty fair and balanced. What is that? The Fox News quote? But I think that they should be able to give over that information to the defense, just put it under a protective order, and hand it to the defense. And then the only people that will only be able to see that is defense and Bryan Kohberger. So they can use that, just put everything out on the table at this point. You have to. All right. So let's pull up the legal document here. I'm not going to read too much of it because I reading through legal documents is sometimes like paint drying on the wall. Everybody thinks, we're all not legal experts, but we all think we know. But let's do this. So basically, this was a statement from Dr. Lee Larkin challenging the DNA evidence. We're putting a document out there. Obviously, gives all her credentials here at the top. And we go into GG is best described as used as DNA data to evaluate biological relationships. There are 3 categories in genealogy DNA testing: Y chromosome DNA, direct partner line only. I'm not even going to get any of these. Mitochondrial DNA and the autosomal DNA. All branches of pedigree. A GG integrates information from these DNA tests with genealogical documentation to reveal a corroborated relationship. There was something that I thought that was just very interesting here. So they're going to talk about here in number 5 about the GG primarily used DNA tests that were originally designed for biomedical research. Since 23andMe brought their health test into consumer market in late 2007, Family Tree DNA, Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage, and a handful of smaller companies have launched their own GG products. These companies all provide genealogy tools to their customers on their website and also produce a raw DNA profile. The customer can download. The raw DNA file contains the genetic profile for that customer. This genetic profile is not the same as STR profile, and it's commonly uploaded to CODIS in a forensic DNA analysis. Most of human genome is identical across all people. Only the DNA positions that vary between individuals are used for genealogy. These variable positions are called single nucleotide polymorphisms. Wow, I got that. That's pretty good. Or SNAP. We'll call it SNAP and SNP. The direct-to-consumer genealogy companies are used to test called a microarray that samples roughly 600,000 of the DNA snaps. Unlike the STR markers used for matching CODIS, snaps can convey information about medical and physical traits as well as biological relationships to close and distant cousins. Wow, I'm warming up now, as you can see. My brain is slowing down. We've heard really a lot of this in one of the last, some of the other documents here that we had previous to this, but I knew that when Dr. Larkin came in, because that is her specialty, that she was going to start challenging a lot of this DNA. And the funny thing about it is that everybody goes, oh, the DNA, it's a nothing burger. It's a nothing burger. If it was a nothing burger, let me ask you this question. If it was a nothing burger, do you think that they would be challenging it this much? What I want to do here is recognize Rising from the Ashes has become a new member. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Thank you so much. And Danielle has sent it's really not excellent. Danielle, $4.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. It's actually really bad. Yeah, it's interesting. It is very complicated. Again, we're not DNA experts. We're not lawyers. Maybe there are some lawyers in here. Maybe there are. But I'm definitely not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. And I'm terrible at reading. This one, let's see. I wanted to go down to number 8 because that kind of stood out to me a little bit. The standard, and this is going to go on the quantity of the sample and the quality of the sample. And, I think that, these are all good points that they are raising for the defense. The standard DNA requires approximately 200, I think it's nanograms of quality DNA. That quality in quantity is often not available from crime scenes or degraded human remains. Instead, specialized laboratories can generate a SNAP profile through a more complex process. First, they attempt a sequence the entire genome using next generation sequencing, NGS technology. The technology works with a bit like skimming while reading a document. On the first pass, NGS technology will not capture all the data, and it will make mistakes. NGS involves repeat passes called coverage, and to get more accurate results for human genome sequences, times 30, times 50 coverage is recommended. Let's see here. We're going to pull up this super chat from MJC. She gave me a $1.99 super sticker. Thank you so much for your contribution. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Hey, Peruka, how are you? Good to see you, man. Thanks for popping by. Probably not your forte, but you know, we're hanging out. We're hanging out. So let's see. Once the GNS profile is obtained, it must be manipulated through bioinformatics. God, there's some big words in here, huh? To make it compatible with the genealogy database. The extra data must be stripped out of it, just like the SNAP that genealogy companies testing. The missing or ambiguous data must be inferred using statistical methods. The kit is uploaded to the genealogy database and evaluated. A poor quality kit may have too few matches. And I guess this is going back to probably some of those home kits, phantom matches. Again, questioning those home kits that you can, you know, do your DNA profiles at home, 23andMe, etc., like that. The trial and error process can take over several tries to produce the kit that works well in a genealogy database. And here we go too. Number 10, GED match, family tree DNA, and some smaller entities allowing crime scenes and human remains samples to be uploaded. The terms of service of the Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, and MyHeritage Profile Forensics investigate GG in their database. However, the absence of efficient oversight, forensic genealogists are in the honor system in the terms of obey the terms of service and the Department of Justice interim policy. For again, I think these are all going to be, you know, some valid points here. That's what their job is to do, is to challenge this. I'm going to be very, I guess, I'm looking to see the state's response to this, what they'll come back and say. I think these are all probably some great points that the defense, you don't really hear me say this too much. You don't hear me say this, but the bottom line is that his DNA was found at that crime scene. So you're gonna, no matter how much you challenge it, you're going to have to explain how it got there. They're trying to make it go away. And I've said this before, you know, I go back and say this, it's like the O.J. Simpson effect. You know, what did they do? They attacked the police. They attacked the evidence. They attacked the way that the evidence was collected. They attacked the way that the evidence was processed, you know, et cetera, et cetera. They got police on the stand and they attacked their character. When they got Furman on the stand, you know, his alleged racist remarks, you know, so that's what they did. So they beat down the evidence, they beat down the investigation. And when you made all that go away, it made it almost next near impossible. Like Cochran said, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. You know, it made all that go away. And that's what I see going on in this case. It's going to be an extremely fascinating case to watch. And I think we're all chomping at the bit to see this. But I'm going to tell you, it ain't going to be in October. I think it's 2024, 2025, unfortunately. The GG databases are siloed from one another. If you test the ancestry DNA and your siblings test at 23andMe, you will not be matched to one other because you are not in the same database. And again, they are challenging because they used Kohberger's father's DNA to break down that profile to get to Kohberger. And I guess this is probably what they're doing here in challenging that. The GD match is third-party site and functions as genealogy commons. A user can upload their raw data file from the testing company and find matches to people who uploaded the GED match from different companies. Like GED Match, Family Tree DNA, and MyHeritage also uploads the raw data files. Ancestry DNA and 23andMe do not. Pat has a $4.99 super chat. Says, thanks for what you do. I love it here. Well, Pat, we love having you here, and thank you so much for the $4.99. Let's see. Raylan saying, wait, Brian, but real life, though, the investigation of OJ case was actually really poor. Just saying. Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it in this sense this way, too, right? That case was what, almost close to 30 years ago now. If you look at the way that law enforcement processed scenes or collected evidence back then versus how the technology and the processes have changed, it's way far and beyond because technology has advanced. I would say it was very poor back then. And I'm sure that they're going to find that the defense is going to find ways to exploit some of that evidence collection in this too. I mean, you're seeing it here with the DNA profile, challenging that DNA profile. Again, this is going to be an extremely riveting case. And I think that the prosecution and the defense have extreme uphill battles on both sides, but it hasn't changed my opinion. I still think that from what I see, that there is a lot of evidence against Bryan Kohberger in this case. And that's my opinion. And I know people in this chat are not going to agree with me, and that's completely fine. That's why we all come here collectively and we talk about it. But when we do it in a respectful way. Absolutely. So, again, I am not an expert. I'm not an expert in DNA. I don't have any type of law degree. I just do research on the interwebs and bring it to this platform. So, let's see. Let's go on here. I don't think there's too much more. So they're going to go into talking about how the profiles are broken down. I'm not going to get too much more into this. I think we're getting the general sense of how they're attacking this DNA. I think it does raise some questions. And again, it only takes one. It only takes one juror to cast doubt. And that's all they need. That's all the defense needs is one juror. But again, if there is information out there, especially how they got these profiles, that I think, and I heard a lot of rumors that, the prosecution is hiding stuff. They're hiding how they get this. Do this. Put it all out there for defense. Put it under a protective order so it protects it from the public. Only the defense and the defendant will be able to see this. And let's move on. Let's move on. And you don't hear me being too critical of the prosecution at all, ever. So I think, to be fair, I think that's how I feel. And again, I think that the defense is, raising some good questions right now. And if they can create that doubt, that one piece of doubt in a juror, that's it. You get a hung jury, and and then you're either going to go back through this case, and it's going to be a long process, and something that probably both sides don't want to continue to keep going through. So let's do this. We'll bring up the article here that I was talking about from News Nation. I had those talking points earlier, and we'll read through some of this. So Bryan Kohberger's defense team cast doubts on DNA evidence. Let's go into it here. So this was from August 11th. News Nation. The lawyers representing the Idaho murder suspect, Bryan Kohberger, are now challenging the evidence investigators used to suggest flaws in the reliability of the genetic genealogy which investigators used to arrest him. Investigators used genetic genealogy to link Kohberger to the crime by creating a DNA profile from a knife sheath found at the scene, which matched the profile of Kohberger's dad, eventually leading to his arrest. Recent court documents by Kohberger's defense, however, dispute the imperfect nature of the science used to identify him, and now scrutinizing the pivotal piece of evidence that connects him to the quadruple homicide, suggesting that the DNA link may not be trustworthy. And again, we only know right now this small link. There may be other multiple links that the prosecution hasn't put out there in their investigation yet. I believe, and just wait for the cast information. We know about cast. There could be there could be plenty of other evidence that we haven't heard about yet, and I believe there is. But everything that's been put out there legally that we can see right now, of course, the defense is going to get on that, and they have one hell of an expert. I'm going to tell you that this expert has a very is very skilled in DNA. So the quote here says, "This is the most aggressive challenge. We were saying, wait a minute, is this fruit of poison? Is this the fruit of a poison apple or something? How could you get this genetic match? Do we know it's a good match?" Said Dr. I think it's Hamskin. Hamskin. I said Hamskin. I thought it said Hamskin. A forensic biologist at Boise State. Dr. Greg, I'm sorry. I butchered your name. I'm sorry. It looked like Hamskin to me when I looked at it really quick. Maybe got tunnel vision. Definitely got tunnel vision there early on the case through bad genealogy. Defense attorney submitted an affidavit on Wednesday from Dr. Lee Larkin, a DNA expert based in California, echoing concerns that the science behind GG is not flawless. Larkin argues DNA profiles built by at-home test companies such as Ancestry DNA, 23andMe aren't constructed the same way that those specialized laboratories are not as reliable, according to her affidavit seen by dailymail.com. A poor quality kit may have a few matches or just might have phantom matches that are not real measures of relationships, the document states. Law enforcement is increasingly utilizing this technique to track suspects' relatives on ancestry websites. And I think, and I was watching Harvard lawyer Lee, and we're going to actually play through her video here in a minute, talking about that, really this type of technology, I think the first time that it was brought in was 2015, but we're really hearing about this because it's such a high profile case. And this is going to be a very, like she was saying, this is going to be a very pivotal moment here, this case with this type of information, this type of DNA profiling. This is going to be talked about for a very long time and may help create some laws around this. So Larkin noted an example where near 20 possible relationship lines were listed for a match and said that's considered a close match. She also noted cases that were aware of GG has been wrong in cases where databases were impromptly by authorities. I'm going to mess this up again, so I'm just going to say Dr. Gray, who spearheaded the Idaho Innocence Project, emphasized that DNA can unveil a lot, but not always the entire narrative. Our experience when we worked with police, they first hit that they got through genealogy. The guy they thought was a good suspect, he'd been in the area. He sounded like a good match. They went to test him because his father had it close to a close match, and then turned out the suspect was wrong. Dr. G explains. The critical question remains: Will the defense's claim impact Kohberger's plea of not guilty in the deaths of Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogen, Xander Knodel, and Kaylee Gonzalez? So, great question there. I think that the defense is doing their job. Obviously, attacking that DNA evidence. I knew that this would be, something that they would do, of course, and they're doing their job. They have one hell of a DNA expert. And again, if all they need is just to create doubt in that one juror. So we'll see what happens here, how the prosecution's going to respond. I guess I feel that there's still a lot of evidence that still has not come out that we will see at trial. And I'm telling you, the thing that I'm waiting for, and I know you're all waiting for it, is that prosecution's opening statement, because I believe it's going to answer a lot of the unanswered questions. Okay, let's look at this little segment here from the Law and Crime Network. It's going to get into the DNA evidence a little bit here that we just talked about. And we'll play through this. And then I'm going to pull up the Harvard lawyer Lee's, because she is a legalese and can cast a little bit more light on this situation. All right, let's play through this.
These are critical, relevant materials, all of them, including the police training records. They're necessary for us to prepare and present our defense in this report. They're necessary for us to do our investigation.
A legal war of words has broken out over how police in Idaho identified Bryan Kohberger as a suspect in the murders of 4 college students. We discuss whether his attorneys should get the genetic genealogy information that led police to Kohberger's doorstep.
Hey, are you looking for some more true crime content? Are you an armchair detective? It's okay. A lot of us are. Well, if you haven't already, you got to check out the True Crime Garage podcast, which is probably going to be your next binge listen. Why? Well, each week, the Garage guys cover a new case featuring me. You can listen to the True Crime Garage podcast on Apple.
Just going to bump this
Bryan
up.
Kohberger's attorneys are fighting tooth
I'm
and
not
nail to
sponsored
see the
by
genetic
them.
genealogy information that the FBI used to identify Kohberger as a potential suspect. According to police, it started with an unknown male's DNA being found on a K-bar knife sheath that was laying next to Maddie Mogen's body. Police couldn't get a hit from CODIS, the DNA database for known felons, so they used genetic genealogy to identify Kohberger. That led detectives to his father, Michael, in Pennsylvania, and Kohberger's arrest. Kohberger has pleaded not guilty to the murders of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. Kohberger's attorneys want the prosecution to turn over the investigative genetic genealogy information the FBI used to ID Kohberger as a possible suspect. The prosecution says it shouldn't be turned over because it's simply a tip. But now Kohberger has a genetic genealogy expert named Leah Larkin, who has filed an affidavit who says she's aware of errors that can occur in genetic genealogy, including terms of service violations for some databases, and sending the wrong profile to the wrong client. And let me tell you, the investigative genetic genealogy in this case was incredibly important because until that work had been completed, the police really didn't have much to go on. They had video of a white Hyundai Elantra that they believed was made between a certain set of years and an unknown male DNA profile. Joining me to discuss this battle over the investigative genetic genealogy records in this case is Fred Perry. He is a defense attorney who's represented high-profile defendants, some rappers, and other people. Fred, welcome back to Sidebar. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Fred is a criminal defense attorney, somebody who's represented defendants charged in some pretty high-profile matters, and just as a defense attorney in general. What is your take upon reading the documents and this argument by the state that, hey, this is a tip, it's a lead, we shouldn't have to turn this over to the defense?
Well, it's very common practice in every jurisdiction that the prosecution needs to disclose their evidence that they intend to present at a criminal trial. And it's surprising to me that they're trying to preclude the production of this information in a case like this. If you think about it, one of my favorite movies is My Cousin Vinny. And when Joe Pesci finds out that he has the right to have the prosecutor turn over their evidence in the case, he asks the prosecutor and he says, "Here's my file." He says, "Sure, here's my whole file." And that's what a good prosecutor should do. They shouldn't try to hide anything. They should turn over evidence that they intend to introduce at trial. And obviously they have the obligation to turn over any potential exculpatory evidence as well. So I really don't understand the prosecution's theory of withholding this information.
We've interviewed some genetic genealogy experts in the past, most notably CeCe Moore. She has a show about this stuff. And when this first came out in January, this speculation and, leaked information that they used genetic genealogy to identify Kohberger as a suspect, she had told me, well, we never have to produce this in court, something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing what she said. But it seems to me, if you're considering this and arguing that this is a tip and that it's a lead, it should be turned over to the defense because they received more than 9,000 tips into the FBI tip line. I would assume all of those would be turned over as well, so the defense could review and see if there was exculpatory information in those tips and leads.
The leads.
Yeah, I mean, as we've discussed before, this is a capital murder case, and if I were sitting in the defense attorney's chair in this case, I'd be fighting like heck to get this information. I don't see any problem with the
Tsunami.
prosecution turning this information over, whether it leads to
That's true.
exculpatory information or not. It should be provided. And the judge,
But I think the defense is pissed because of the way that they got it. That's the thing. That's that they're challenging so they can try to get this thrown out.
in this case, has discretion. Like
And that's why I keep saying to everybody, everybody that keeps saying like, oh, is DNA on the knife sheath doesn't mean shit. If it didn't mean shit, then why is the defense challenging it the way that they are? Okay. Why are they challenging it so hard right now? If it doesn't mean shit, then why are they challenging so hard? Because, like I said, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is they have to explain how that DNA got there, because it's on a bed, on a knife sheath, on a bed with 2 dead victims. You have to explain for that. So that's why they're trying to attack the way that the process was, because if they can get in there and do it that way, they can get this thrown out or create some doubt.
judges do. He can order a protective order to be, put in place here, and order that the defense cannot disclose this information to anyone other than the defendant, in their presence, his or her presence of counsel, or any investigative team that might be working on the case. And that I think would cure any concerns that the prosecution has in this case. I think they can turn it over under a protective order, that it's not to be disclosed and disseminated to the public.
I'm going to get into the weeds just a little bit here, and I'll paraphrase what the state's argument is. And basically, the state is saying, look, the FBI performed this work. They did it in compliance with Department of Justice protocols, and they didn't really keep the information they developed. They kind of unplugged their key from the portal or what have you after they were done, and there's no documentation on that. Does that seem unusual to you?
Yeah, it does a bit. And
I agree.
again, that's easily cured with the court ruling that we can have an evidentiary hearing on the issue and have a pretrial hearing and question the agents about how they went about their business and how they recovered certain evidence, because this is an important piece of evidence in this case. And the defense has a right to have their expert review the process of retrieving the evidence from the crime scene, chain of custody issues, how the genealogy was done, the tips that led to the defendant in this case. And I think it's appropriate ask for the defense. I don't see a problem with it.
This investigative genetic genealogy work or technique has been around for several years now, and it seems almost like a new frontier where it's being used in court, but oftentimes the laws are written long before this. So it's not going to be included in a lot of statutes, state statutes and things like that. So as evidence evolves, the statutes and requirements have to, I guess, evolve along with that, and it often doesn't. So do you see investigative genetic genealogy that as something that may come under scrutiny in the future in these criminal cases, and something where maybe there needs to be something written into the state statutes about it?
Well, obviously the science behind the IgG is well beyond my pay grade. But
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with you that the law is ever evolving in this area. And I think what will happen is lawyers, either prosecutors or defense attorneys, will have to take appeals from certain rulings by courts. And the appellate courts and the state Supreme Courts are going to have to make certain decisions regarding the disclosure of this evidence, the introduction of this evidence, the challenges to this evidence, how experts are used in this area. And I agree with you. It is a new frontier, and it will be ever changing.
The state kind of argues that it was a tip or a lead, but really what matters is the fact that the DNA on the knife sheath, was a statistical match to Kohberger once they were able to be led to him through the IgG, and they took a sample from him with a buccal swab, compared it to the DNA on the sheath, and it was a statistical match. What do you make of that argument? I mean, obviously the DNA is not going to lie, but I would assume the defense is going to try to argue or present information, testimony at trial that, I don't know, there could have been contamination, there could have been other things going on.
And that's the purpose of having an expert testify on behalf of a defendant or review the case on behalf of a defendant. If the expert is not able to challenge, as you said, a statistical match, or show that there was any contamination, or show that there was some bump in the road as far as the retrieval and the chain of custody and things like that, if their defense expert is not able to raise any issue, any credible issue in a trial in this case, then, a statistical match is a statistical match. And, that might be just the end of it there.
This trial is scheduled to begin in October. October 2nd is when jury selection is supposed to start. It's a capital case, as we've mentioned. And it's interesting to me, in one of the recent filings, Ann Taylor, the lead counsel for Bryan Kohberger, basically accuses the state of trying to get Kohberger to waive his speedy trial rights by, slow walking the discovery and things like that. And she said in her latest filing, it's Mr. Kohberger's decision and his decision alone whether or not to waive his rights to a speedy trial. What do you think of that? I mean, it almost sounds like she's saying, this is his decision. He wants a speedy trial. Yeah, we know it's a lot of information to wade through, but this is where we are. So do you think that they should be waiving the speedy trial and maybe pumping the brakes a little bit?
We've discussed this previously, and this is a big case to be pushing and racing to trial. The defendant may not understand that. He may just want to get to trial as quickly as possible. But if I were preparing this case, and if there was no delay being caused by the prosecution, I would want to take my time and go through this. We're talking about these IgG studies and all that process, and our expert needs time. And I'm sure counsel for the defendant has other matters on their plate. So it's kind of hard to just race this thing to trial. You have to start talking about potential mitigation evidence for a sentencing hearing if he is found guilty of a crime that leads to a capital murder sentencing hearing. So, I think you ought to pump the brakes, but that's just me. But yeah, it's up to the defendant to make that decision.
So have you ever been in a situation where the defendant said, I want a speedy trial and this is what we're doing, and you
I was muted. I always do that. Anyway, I'll go back. I was saying that I have 180 people watching. We're only at 85 likes. If you can just get this to 100 likes, I really would appreciate it. Excuse me. I really would appreciate it because we get the stream out into the algorithm and get more live audience over here. And if we get to 100 likes, I'll gift out some free memberships. Takes 2 seconds to hit that. I have tons of members only content in my members only section.
That position to have to prepare so quickly for a big case, or because I would think you would have to have a conversation with you.
Carrie H, check your email. I emailed you. I'll just say it here. So I've been trying to get a gift card out to Carrie H. Carrie H, do you have Target where you are? If you don't have Target, I can just send you out a $25 like American Express gift card. Just let me know down there in the comments. I want to get that out to you.
Your clients say this is just a lot. We can't, we don't have, endless resources to devote to this every waking hour of the day.
Yeah, I've had to have that tough conversation with clients periodically, and I will never go begin a trial unless I am fully
I'll
prepared.
Get that gift card out to you
myself. If we have an investigator working, if we have witnesses that we need to present, I will never start a trial that I'm not prepared to go to war with. So I have had these conversations with my clients and said, hey, listen, we need some time and I need some time, and you're going to have to sit tight till we get this thing ready.
That's it for this.
All right, Angelina Levy reporting from the Law and Crime Network. Okay, we're going to pull up Harvard lawyer Lee. Okay, we're going to hear, because she's an actual lawyer and I am not. Let's see what she has to say about this. But I'm going to put a challenge out there. I'm going to put a challenge out there to everybody. Before, actually, let me do this first. I'm going to put a challenge out there. If, and I hope you're all listening, if anybody can get Harvard lawyer Lee to come on my panel and do a segment with me here on my podcast, and we totally vet who set up the, who set the whole thing up to get her here on this channel, I will pay that person $200. So I don't want to call it like a bounty, but a reward. If you can get Harvard lawyer Lee on my channel, I will pay you a reward of $200. So that challenge is out there. That challenge is out there. If you can make it happen, the first person that brings it, and we have a legitimate back and forth, and she agrees to do it, I will pay you a $200 reward. Okay, let's pull up her video here. I hope that she doesn't mind that we go through it. And if you haven't subscribed to Harvard lawyer Lee, please go over and check out her channel. So the challenge is out there, $200 reward. And if someone can get JLR on my channel, I will give a $200 reward as well, because I want to hear his boots on the ground coverage of Moscow, Idaho. So those two rewards are out there. Harvard lawyer Lee. I would say Peter Tragos, but I don't think it's going to happen. He's just a busy guy. He's got his own channel going. It's going crazy right now. And JLR, $200 reward if someone can make that happen. All right, let's play through. I sped up about 3 minutes of the video, but we'll play through it here.
Now, tonight, I want to talk about 3 areas with Bryan Kohberger. The first is how critical this battle over DNA is. The second is what the state does not want to turn over. And then the third thing is what Kohberger's game plan is, what he wants to accomplish, and what he's hoping to get out of this issue. Now, let's start with this DNA battle, because it really, really matters. In the past few years, genetic genealogists have honed their craft. They use public databases to take public databases of DNA that people send in.
Sharon, it's just to interact with my audience, and I have asked them. So don't think that I haven't. But if someone knows them and someone is close to either one of them and can make it happen, to have them come over, give me a half an hour to an hour on my show, $200, I will pay that person if they can make it happen. All right, let's play it.
And hoping to track their ancestors and learn about their family connections. And they're using that to track not just adoptees, which is pretty much how it started, but also criminals and victims. That's one way that they just identified a brand new victim in the Long Island serial killer case, where Rex Heuermann has been charged, not with the murder of the person they just discovered, but with 3 other murders. And he's the chief suspect in a 4th. Now, it took a while to get to the point.
Rising, that's all up for you to do that research for me. You got to do the research, but I'll pay the $200 reward on either guest to the person that can facilitate it and make it happen. Okay, let's play.
Where there was a critical mass of people who had uploaded their data, and it could be used for these sorts of purposes. And the biggest databases of all don't even count. As we learned when we interviewed CeCe Moore on the case, 23andMe and Ancestry.com, the 2 largest such databases, have said law enforcement can't use their information. that it cannot be used for the purposes of tracking criminals. So the smaller databases had to get big enough to be useful, and they don't cross-reference each other. So any one of them has to be big enough to help provide the sort of overlap where they can develop a tree. Now, law enforcement takes information about the DNA that they get maybe at the scene, maybe that they get from a witness, and they upload that to one of these databases. First, they have to create a profile, and then they upload it to see whether they can find connections. And it's not just Bryan Kohberger's case, and it's not just identifying the victim in the Long Island serial killer case. It's happening all over the country, not just in one case, but in many cold cases. Law enforcement is using that opportunity to try to figure out ways that they can identify victims and criminals based on DNA that was collected, but that couldn't really be used in the way it can be used today. But all of this is really in its infancy from the legal standpoint. Now, according to Fox 10 Phoenix, the first case that was ever solved using forensic genetic genealogy was in 2015. That's really recent. When it comes to courts, that is such a short time. Courts are used to dealing with 100 years, 200 years, decades, law that's been around a long time. 2015 is not even enough to have generated law. As C.C. Moore told us, a large number of those cases have resulted in confessions or have resulted in pleas where somebody...
Memberships are gifted down below. Let's just answer this really quick. Lucky Phil says, how are memberships gifted? If you go down below in the chat, you'll see the chat line. There should be a happy face, a $, and a plus sign. If you hit the $, and you have to have membership gifting turned on, it is the last option before you hit close on that pop-up. So membership gifting, and then you can gift memberships that way. I'm at 102, so I owe a membership here. I'm going to gift out a membership to someone. Lucky winner. Enjoy the free month on me. All my members only content down below. And I just did a 60-second clip of my new Gilgo Beach mini series, a little mini video. Knox Girl is a member. Go down there on the home page, scroll all the way down to my members only content. Okay, let's keep playing.
Somebody pled guilty. Not that many cases went all the way through the process where all of the issues got decided. So it's still really in an infancy stage. And that's hard, frankly. That's hard for lawyers and that's hard for courts, because when you have something new, it just throws everything off. Nobody knows what the rules are. So from the standpoint of uber cautious lawyers, uber cautious courts, it might as well be.
Thank you for your generosity. Phil, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. 5 memberships gifted out. Let's welcome everybody to the channel. Thank you, Lucky Phil. Appreciate you.
The Wild West. This seems so different and so hard for us. So we don't really have rules on genetic genealogy tracing. Is it going to be allowed into court? Will it be allowed to be used
for your gifted
and
membership?
If it's allowed, which
I
it
appreciate
almost
you.
surely will be, will the defendant be able to get all of the information, all of those steps that the state took to get from this piece of DNA back to the defendant, or this piece of DNA back to the victim? Will they be allowed to see all of that information? Will there be rules about it, about what can be used, about how genetic genealogy can be used? Will there be some limits on that? What if law enforcement violates some of those limits? Then what?
So Layla says, hey, I haven't seen Laura on the panel in a while. She's still around because I missed so many lives lately. Just wondering. I don't know. I don't know where Laura is. I had some contact maybe a week ago with her. I know that it is summertime and she does have a couple of kids. So she's probably just spending time with her children. Again, panel members and guests and moderators are, people will come and go. It comes in cycles. People will go, people will come back, people will go, people will come back. I don't pay those panel members to come on here. And it's by choice if they want to come onto the channel. But I always enjoyed my time with them, and things come back around. Believe me, I just started streaming on some other channels with some friends of mine that I made on YouTube, like, oh God, almost close to 3 years ago now, just before when the pandemic just started. And I've been jumping back on their channels again and hanging out. So those friendships are rekindled. Sometimes you need things to breathe a little bit and things come back around. If you've seen any of my TBG videos, that's really what I have in common with all of them. And that's going to be a fascinating case to follow as well too. So no, she's not in Hawaii. She's in Pennsylvania. But yeah, people come and go. I wish her well. Hope she's doing well. And anytime she comes knocking or texting, she wants to come on the panel, absolutely 1000%. She's a huge supporter of me and helped me through a lot of live streams, and I appreciate it. And we did some killer streams together. But, people will come and go. They have their families. I don't have a family. I don't have kids. I'm not married. I'm single. So, to sit here on a Saturday night with all of you, that's how I kind of, choose to do with my time, what I choose to do with my time. So let's keep playing through.
What do you do? Does the evidence get thrown out? Is there a sanction against the state? We saw something like that in the Lori Vallow Daybell case, where there was a sanction against the state because they were slow to produce some information. It wasn't DNA related, but it was slow to produce information. And so law enforcement then, and actually, I think it may have been DNA related now that I think about it, but the law enforcement personnel, are they going to be disciplined? Is there going to be some kind of sanction against the state? So the Justice Department has put out a policy. Now, they don't say this is a law or a rule. They call it a guidance. So the Kohberger case right now is ground zero for this battle. This is not the only case by any means where these issues are being fought over, but it's probably the highest profile case that's dealing with this issue. So it really matters. It's really important. And you have a front row seat to all of this. So pull up a chair, grab your snack, and let's talk about it. So here's what the state does not want to produce. And I'll have to give you a little explanation of this so you can kind of understand. So let me share my screen too, so you can see what I am looking at. Okay, this is the defense third motion to compel, and they put in there, this is what they had asked the state to produce, and the state was not producing it. So what they asked for was reports generated by any lab that conducted some of the SNP testing, which is related to the DNA submissions, the communications between lab personnel and any other person, documentation associated with a database search, documents related to genetic genealogy searches, documents related to the genetic genealogy investigation, and documents related to the comparison of any DNA samples collected during the genealogy investigation to the crime scene evidence. And they wanted the names and addresses of everybody found to have sufficient sharing centimorgans with the subject profile to be identified as a match. And they point out right away, the state's objected. They filed a motion for protective order, and that's where we're going to go next. But you can see from this, what they're trying to get is they want to be able to see what the state did in order to go from this piece of DNA on the knife sheath to Bryan Kohberger. How'd you get from there to there? How'd you do it, state? We want to see all of the things that happened along the way. The scientific things you did, the submissions you did, the communications about it. And we want to know all of the people you found along the way. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to trace. So let's take a look now at the state's motion for protective order. This is what the state said, and it actually was filed before the motion to compel. But this is what the state said about why they should not have to produce this. This is not something we ought to have to show you, is what they were saying. And it's the same argument that CeCe Moore made when we interviewed her on the channel. I'm gonna read it for you, and then I'm gonna kind of break it down to make it a little simpler. They say The mere fact that uploading the completed SNP profile into a publicly available genetic genealogy service led law enforcement to relatives of defendant does not affect the strength of the evidence against him. The strength of the evidence against defendant in terms of DNA evidence depends upon the confirmatory result from the STR DNA analysis between defendant's DNA profile and the DNA recovered from the K-bar knife sheath. Now, that's lawyer speak for saying this. And let me pull back into a bigger screen. So that's lawyer speak for this. The state is saying, what do you care? What do you care how we got from here to here? Because what we did was take the DNA on the knife sheath, and ultimately we compared it to Bryan Kohberger's DNA, and they matched. So who cares how we found Bryan? We got there and they matched. That's good enough. That's essentially what they're saying. They're saying, look, people voluntarily uploaded their
Probably
DNA.
not.
The service told them it could be used for this sort of thing.
I think I'm going to be single for the rest of my life.
Were apparently okay with it. It was used for that, and it was used legitimately. We have a connection. Now, they also argue, and I'll skip down a little, that this is a lot like a tip. They say this is an analogy. The tip that came from the IgG process is no different than other types of technology hits that put law enforcement on the trail of a suspect. In other words, they're saying, look at the way we do hits all the time. Look at the way we get tips. We get a tip from somebody that says, go look at so-and-so. We think John Doe might be involved. Go take a look at them. And then we don't just arrest John Doe. We don't just haul him in. We don't put him in jail. We don't convict him. Instead, we say, John Doe, interesting. Let me go see if John Doe has any connection to this case. Let me see if there's any evidence that suggests he does. And then I'll put it together. And so that's how the IgG information is used. It's just a tip. That's all it is. And it doesn't matter any more than that. And let's take a look just real quick at what Mama Pink has said. She said, I know that one of the mainstream DNA companies allow for you to opt in or out, right, to use your information for forensic purposes. She opted in. Some of them said, we're going to do this for all purposes. Some of them said, we will never allow law enforcement to access us. And some of them did exactly what Mama Pinks is talking about. They said, you can opt in, you can opt out, but we're going to let you make the choice. And Mama Pinks is saying she decided, I'm in. I would like to be in on that. So this law enforcement, or the prosecution really would be a better way to say it at this stage, since we're actually in the case now, said also, look, we didn't use this information of getting from DNA on the sheath to Kohberger. We didn't use that to establish probable cause. It isn't like we took that into a grand jury and said, why, look, we connected it through here, so it must be Kohberger. Instead, we compared Kohberger's DNA to the DNA on the knife sheath. That's the part that matters. So it kind of folds back into the same argument. Then on page 15, they say the last thing that page 15, really in my notes for me, that this isn't a scientific test or experiment. It's not something we would normally have to produce. And look at this bad thing that could occur if we did. The bad thing is that we could unveil hundreds of innocent people who have uploaded their information, and now and
that's what I said about putting it under a protective order. Just put it under a protective order. It won't get out to the public. It can show it to the defense. Argument over.
Are connected to this defendant in a high-profile quadruple homicide, and maybe they really wouldn't like somebody to know that Bryan Kohberger is their third cousin twice removed. Maybe they want nothing to do with Bryan Kohberger and don't want to be seen as having anything to do with it.
I think that just to Claudio or Claudetto, I think I have that right, is asking, Brian, do you think the defense should get how they got to his dad, or is insignificant? I think, again, I said they can do this a couple of ways, or just, I think the most simplest way to do it, put it in a protective order, just like I said, put it in a protective order. It will not put any of the names out there that were seen in this profile. They can hand it to the attorneys. Only the attorney's defendant will see it. But as far as it being insignificant, the problem is going to be for this. Even though they're challenging the DNA in this way, and like I said, that they were going to do this. And if you want to kind of go back in the stream, if you weren't here in the beginning, we used the O.J. Simpson analogy, where they attacked the evidence, the way that it was collected. They attacked the police, the collection methods, where the evidence was stored, how much DNA, the blood samples, all that. If they attack that, they make that go away, it creates and casts doubt in the jury. But again, the biggest sticking point is this. You have to explain for how that DNA got there, and they have not done that yet. So again, I challenge everybody that says this DNA evidence on this knife sheath, because it's there and it's laying next to the two victims that were brutally murdered, and they say, oh, it's a nothing burger. If it's a nothing burger, then why is the defense attacking this evidence the way that it is? Because they know it's solid. They're going to have to explain how it got on that knife sheath and how that knife sheath got on that bed with these two murdered victims there. It's very easy. It's very easy to figure out. I don't know why some of these other channels and some of these other creators think that, oh, you think the fucking two girls went to bed with a knife sheath laying beside them every night? You think that they were just rolling all over this knife sheath and didn't know it was there? It was there. It was left by the killer. So bottom line, they're going to have to explain for that. They're going to have to explain. I don't go to bed with knife sheaths in my bed every night. I don't know. Maybe there's other people that do, but I don't.
That there's the state is saying is a privacy issue for them. Then so those are the state's arguments. That's what the state is saying is the reason that the state believes. Let me get back to my screen. Sorry. That's why the state believes that it is important that the DNA matches, but unimportant how the state moved from the DNA on the knife sheath to Bryan Kohberger. They don't think that matters. Now let's take a look at what Bryan Kohberger's game plan is. And our tip for this is an affidavit that just got filed 2 days ago. Here it is. It's the Leah Larkin affidavit. And I'll start up at the top where you can see what she has to say. It's connected to their motion to compel.
Exactly.
They're saying, here's some important information, Judge, that you'll need to consider as you decide whether the state needs to turn over this evidence to us. Here are the reasons, and she's going to explain them to you. She's an expert court, and she's going to explain to you why you need to turn over this information to us. Now, one of the things I found very interesting is she was just hired 2 weeks ago. She was engaged as an expert on July 27th, so it's brand new. They had asked for funding for that. And she says, I'm a genetic genealogist, which would put her in the same category of job type as Cece Moore was. She had a bachelor's degree in biology and a PhD in botany. Now, at first I was thinking, botany, what does that have to do with anything? First of all, of course, I don't think there are majors in this yet. This is just something developing. But secondly, then I thought botany, well, this is about a family tree, right? So my mom joke for the evening. They also talked about, she talked about in the affidavit that she said this isn't as precise as you might think, because they take this standard DNA microwave, and often there's not enough. What you get at the scene of a crime, what you get from a victim that's where the remains have degraded over time, that may not be enough. So what they do is generate a SNP profile through a, quote, more complex process using next generation sequencing, NGS. And on the first pass, it may not be enough. It may not capture enough, and it may make mistakes. So what they do is run it again and again, repeated passes. And then it's not like they just upload it and it's one easy, scientific, obvious thing. At that point, it has to be manipulated through bioinformatics to make it compatible. Extra data has to be stripped out, missing or ambiguous data has to be inferred. Now, I don't understand all of those details, but that's not the point. To understand the point they're making, All we have to know is she's trying to talk to people just who probably, like most of you and definitely like me, who don't really know what that means. But what they're going to argue to the court is there's a lot of information in here that is added by law enforcement. It's not just, hey, here's some DNA, here's a scientific test, that's all there is to it. Instead, they do a lot of things. They infer things, they strip things out.
I'm just going to go back up here. Brian says, you're right. The knife sheath is obviously left by the killer, but BK's DNA on the knife sheath doesn't necessarily make him the killer. Okay. I'd love to hear your theory, if you can type it in the chat, how his DNA got there and then how that knife sheath ended on the bed. Was it the police that planted it? Was it the killer that meticulously got Brian's DNA and held on to it for a month in a sealed container and then went in and planned all this all along and smeared the swab on the sheath and put it on the bed? Is that the bullshit you're going to run here? Because I think you're going to be way off, dude. I think this case is a lot more simpler than people think it is. And the problem is that there's been a lot of back and forth between the prosecution and the DNA. But I think when everything unfolds and we see all of the facts and all the evidence that's presented in front of us, I think that people are going to be very surprised at how simple this all led up to be. But I would love to hear that explanation. So was conspiracy against Brian? They plucked this obscure guy that came all the way out from Pennsylvania to WSU, 3,000 miles away from his home, and they honed in on him, right? That's how they found him. Are you going to say Brent Kopacka did it too? Is that the theory, that Brent Kopacka knew BK and took his DNA and stored it and put it in sealed containers and then smeared it all over the sheath? Is that what it's going to be? Is it going to be that? So I love the conspiracies.
They reinterpret things, and that's how they get to what the SNP profile will be. It's not just easy.
So they dabbled it on the knife, right?
They
held it.
Said in the affidavit, it might have.
Was it in a Ziploc bag or was it in a container? Is that how they got it? Oh, wait. Did he go to the store and he touched it? That's how they got it there? Went to the store, he touched it, and then someone went in and the killer went in and bought it and then brought it to the house and he dropped it. Is that what it is? Is that the story? Or was it the tunnels? Is that how it got there? The tunnels, right? They went under the tunnels, under the house, into the trap door. That's how they did it.
Matches. In other words, it might come up with a match to a person and it's false.
Cartels, yes.
Now, I think the state would argue none of that really matters if, in fact, it works. The proof in the pudding is the fact that it actually matched. So we know it worked. The fact that it actually matched with Bryan Kohberger, that's what matters. Now, the terms of service at Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, just as Mama Pink said.
I'm not being condescending. I'm putting out the theories that have been put out by these conspiracy channels. All that you all watch and get your minds melted by this bullshit. You stick to the legal documents. You stick to experts like this. You'll get to the facts. Not, I heard the story from someone, but someone, and this guy came out and he was there and they saw the neighbor's dog and the neighbor's dog brought it over and snuck into the house and mysteriously put it on the bed, right? Oh, wait, Brian really wasn't even there. He was in Hawaii at the time. He wasn't even anywhere near it. All that bullshit. Stick to the people that are experts in this. Harvard Lawyer Lee, Peter Tragos, Lauren Crime Network, Anjanette Levy. They're going to give you the straight facts. All this other stuff, the drama shit, to get clicks and views and money and all that stuff. I don't know. I don't get with that. I stick to the legal documents here. That may disappoint some of you in the chat. I'm just not going to go there. I don't do that stuff. Like the whole just driving around that night. He was just driving around, hanging out, windows down, wind in his hair, happened to end up at King Road that night. It's a coincidence. Just drove by. Get out of the car.
Say that you can't use genetic genealogy.
I may disappoint some of the chat. This might not be the channel.
In their databases.
Go there.
That's not permitted, but it's an honor system. And what that means is if it's an honor system, that it's only
driving
going
around
to be
aliens.
policed
Yes.
by people honestly deciding they're going to do the right thing.
Scraped
There's
his
nobody out there
info.
saying, hey, you're not allowed to use it this way. And so people may be using the database inappropriately. That's what Kohberger's team is arguing. And
do you not think by just the law of logic, if there was other people that were involved, they would have not been arrested by now? Do you not think that? So all this college kid theory and the guy at the food truck and it was under the tunnels, the cartels did it. Come on, dude. Seriously? You're going to roll with that?
that they talk about,
Holy
it
smokes.
could lead to more than one person. Any given centimorgan amount can represent more than one possible relationship. So it's not a clear line from one person to the next, from one relationship
I don't think you're
to
being
the next.
open-minded to me.
They talked about the
My
use of a
suggestions, my
statistical
opinions.
tool called What Are the Odds? And said that can analyze multiple DNA matches, but it's not intended to give a definitive answer.
Driving around.
It points a
listening to
genealogist
Taylor Swift.
toward the most likely branches in the tree for further research. And that's something important to note, because they didn't actually, I've been too broad in what I've been saying the DNA match from Bryan Kohberger to the knife sheath. That's really not fair, because
y'all know there was no DNA evidence in the Murdaugh trial, right? And they nailed him completely down to cast in that Snapchat video.
actually what they said was something number octillion times more likely to be Bryan Kohberger than someone in the general population. So they took those numbers and used statistically how
I don't get any
likely it was
conspiracies,
to be
Danielle. I
Bryan
just won't do it.
Kohberger versus
Again,
someone else. That's what
If you're
they're
looking for conspiracies, this might not be the channel. Just might not be.
getting to, not a specific
We
actual
want to get to
final
the truth.
answer. That the genetic genealogist generates numerous documents to ensure an adequate paper trail. And see what they're getting to here? What they're saying here is Bryan Kohberger's team wants those documents, the trail that went from the knife sheath to Bryan Kohberger. They want to see what those documents are. And this expert witness is saying there are documents.
Exactly.
It's not true that they were unnecessary. They were discarded, as the state sort of implied. They were unimportant, didn't matter. No, not at all. The defense is saying there are documents. There is a paper trail. It's very possible to follow that, and that absolutely should have been done.
And then I like the police. The police framed him. I love that. So that would mean that all of the Moscow police would have to be in on it. All of the FBI would have to be in on it. The prosecution would have to be in on it. All the witnesses would have to be in on it. The laboratory experts would have to be on it. I mean, it would be the biggest conspiracy in the world. It would be the biggest conspiracy in the world. It's just a guy, they plucked that obscure guy, plucked him out of society and said, that's the guy we're going to pin it on. Yep. That's the guy. Makes sense.
I want to thank Tam. Let me show her comment. She's saying your guest CC Moore episode was amazing. Thanks for having her lawyer Lee. She was amazing. I learned so much. I think we all did. And the beauty of this is it is so important to all the cases that we're following.
But
if
it
you
matters
watch
that
video, and as soon as this gets uploaded, I'll link it. I can't do it until YouTube has processed the video, but it'll probably be about half an hour. I'll link them because it's amazing what she taught us. We really learned a lot, and we're going to use that repeatedly. So thanks, Tam. I really appreciate your saying that, and I totally agree with you. The affidavit then talks about the Department of Justice interim policy that I told you about, that talked about when and where law enforcement is allowed to use genetic genealogy and how they're allowed to access the databases. When are they going to be allowed to do that? When are they not allowed to do that? And so those things are all covered in the affidavit. And then I thought this was super important. She says, it doesn't always work. There have been problems. And I want to talk about those because This is what Bryan Kohberger is hoping for. Bryan Kohberger is hoping for one of these problems. I'll make it a little bit bigger.
So who did
Make
it?
sure you can see.
Who did it, Karen? We just want to know. It doesn't put him in the house. Well, I don't know. It probably would put him in the house, in my opinion. So who did it? Who was the one that got his skin cells, scraped it, meticulously put it on the button, and then went in and murdered four victims, and then gently placed the knife sheath on the bed? Can you tell me who did that? Because I can't find that anywhere in a legal document. All signs point to Bryan Kohberger. That's why he's arrested and he's in jail right now. And if any of this was all bullshit, don't you think that he would be out of jail? Wouldn't be arrested?
Let's go there. Okay. All right. I
Maybe.
think these 4 problems, I skipped C because I don't think that one really would apply here. I think this would clearly be a case that met the Department of Justice threshold. But they're saying, look, these things are in violation.
Who planted? This is the thing, is that you all say that like the evidence is planted, someone did it, but you don't give me a name, you don't give me a person, because you know why? You don't know. That's the thing. You're making a fictitious person up that did this, that in your mind did this, but no one can say like, oh, it's Bob Smith or Ben whoever did it or Mary something. You just say, oh, well, it's just got to be someone that did it. Well, who did it? Who did it? If you have that, if you feel that that is strong, that someone did it, let us know in the chat who did it. Who did it? Did Dylan walk out and do it? Did Bethany walk out and do it? Who did it? Jack came by and he dropped it. The frat guys did it. The cartel was there. You give blanket statements. That's the thing. You give a very blanket statement and you never say a name or a person or nothing. You say, oh, well, doesn't place them in the house, doesn't this. But in your mind, you have to know who did this. We need to hear it. We need to hear it from you. That's what we want to hear.
And yet,
tell us in the
they've
chat.
happened. So it could have happened here. The first is a case in which the chain of custody failed and the wrong SNP profile was sent
Trump.
to
Damn
the
it.
wrong
I
client.
knew it.
That probably won't matter
Damn
here or be
Trumpers.
very likely if, in fact, they successfully prove, as it looks like they have, that the Bryan Kohberger DNA at the end was almost clearly the DNA that was found on the knife sheath. So that probably doesn't matter here, but boy, that would be really amazing if you fingered the wrong person by sending in the wrong profile or gave it the wrong name. The next is investigative genetic genealogists uploading SNP profiles to a forbidden database in violation of that company's terms of service and the Department of Justice interim policy. This is the most likely of them all.
Everybody can't say a name. That's the funny thing is there's no names. They just throw smiley faces up. They never say a name. They never say a person. They never say, we need to know. If you know, tell us, because I want to get that information to the authorities so they can start looking into this person. Because like I said in the beginning of the stream, don't you think all the people that you think are involved in this conspiracy, that the FBI and Moscow Police PD haven't interviewed at least everybody in and around that 3 mile to 2 mile area, probably have knocked on every single door, every single person that's been featured in a video, the grub truck, the bar, the corner club? You don't think that they haven't talked to all those people? And if there was any inkling that they were involved or anything part of their story was shady, that they wouldn't be arrested right now, it makes absolutely zero sense. Because you listen to way too many conspiracy bullshit channels for 7-hour streams, 8-hour fucking streams a day. And all those channels do is just talk this case day and day and day and day, all day long and all night, so they can spin whatever they can to get you all to go over and watch these conspiracy bullshit. They do no other material. They don't do anything else. It's Kohberger, go. It just goes and goes and goes and goes for days and days and days and days and days. And what way can we spin this story today? It's hilarious. I find it hilarious. It's really funny.
Supreme Court is going to have to decide, are we going to exclude the evidence? Is that going to be the remedy? If somebody goes into the databases that they are not allowed to go into.
You still haven't given me a name, Karen. We're waiting for a name. Who did it?
What are we going to do about it? if
We're
law
still
enforcement
waiting.
does that? Are we going to exclude the evidence just like we would if there were a search warrant? Are we going to say, because, when you think about it, we all the time, the state said, okay, we don't care about the process. We care about the match of the two samples of DNA. That's the part that matters, but that's really not true, because we often care about the
I'd probably
process.
say that
if you
too.
think about a search warrant, you think about the fact that what they will do is take, if I'm going to talk, let me be a little bit larger. What they will tell the state, if you didn't get a search warrant, you can't
Carrie, I'm
use
just
what
tired
you
of the
found
lies and
during the search.
conspiracy.
You can't use it, even though it's helpful.
A lot of false
Even though
information out
you
there.
found documents that said we confess, we did it all, even though you found photographs, video, whatever, you can't use that.
Oh, I didn't have
because
a
it's
name
the
until
fruit
Bryan
of the
was
poisonous
arrested?
tree.
That's funny. That's really funny. I've been on YouTube for 3 years. I've had multiple platforms.
Did this search, which you shouldn't have done. You didn't have a proper warrant. So the question is, will we as a country have the same remedy if somebody violates this genetic genealogy? Are we going to have that sort of remedy? My guess is not, but it's an open question. We don't really know. Then you look at investigative genetic genealogists using security loopholes to see DNA kits who were opted out of forensic matching. In other words, and I don't know exactly how they would manage this, I assume it would have something to do with, they would hack into the database or something and look at the profiles of people who said, I don't want to be looked at. I refuse to opt in. And they said, too bad, we're going to look at you anyway. Did that happen? She's saying she is aware of an actual case where that occurred. And then finally, she talks about a case in which a SNP profile was performed on an innocent woman, a potential Fourth Amendment violation of her right to privacy, and uploaded to GED Max without her knowledge or consent. And that too represents a pretty scary issue. Excuse me. Would law enforcement upload DNA, get DNA from somebody who's innocent and upload it just to try to track the person? Would they say, we're stopped right here, but if we get that person's DNA and upload a profile for them, maybe we can get past this roadblock? And I think these are the issues that the Supreme Court ultimately is going to have to decide. These are really hard issues. They're very interesting, and they are going to impact many, many cases across the country. And you're going to have a clear understanding of what it is that they're talking about as we move into what the court's going to decide. How are they going to make these decisions? Now, all Kohberger is doing right now is gathering information, but here's what I think he would like. He would like to have the DNA thrown out. If he can get rid of that, he believes that the state won't have enough evidence to convict him, or it sure will be harder if they can't connect that affidavit.
Did you hear that? This is a lawyer telling you. This is a lawyer telling the conspiracy theorists. I can rewind it. If the DNA didn't matter, then why is the defense working so hard to get it thrown out? But I'll rewind it for you.
Is gathering information, but here's what I think he would like. He would like to have the DNA thrown out. If he can get rid of that, he believes that the state won't have enough evidence to convict him, or it sure will be harder if they can't connect that DNA evidence. So here's some arguments that I think the defense is likely to make. I think they're going to say process matters. This is like a search warrant where you have to get permission in order to go forward. And if you don't, then you can't use what you found, even if it's really useful. Ultimately, the Supreme Court is going to have to decide things like, what are the rules? What are the courts going to do if law enforcement violates it? Are the courts going to throw out the evidence? Will there be sanctions? Will law enforcement personnel have to be disciplined? What's going to happen? The rules here are really not clear. This is a brand new area. The chances are that Bryan Kohberger, if he gets this information, they will find absolutely nothing. CC Moore cited to us some cases where courts have said you don't get the information at all. We agree with the state that if the beginning and the end match, we don't really care about the middle. And so that may be the ruling, or the court may say, here's the information, and Kohberger may get it, and it may not help. There may be none of those really big problems like accessing databases that weren't permissible. That may not even be an issue. So there may be nothing that he can use. But you will be in the know. So thanks for watching. Don't forget, tomorrow night we're going to be doing a premiere. I'll be in the chat with you for a video on Lindsay Shiver, the beauty queen now accused of murder, of trying to hire someone to kill her husband. Be sure to like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow night at 7.
All right. That was a good little video there from Harvard lawyer Lee. And what I'm going to do before we end this stream, because we're going 2 hours and I have work to do. I have a work to do on my next video, but I want to show you. I'm gonna leak it. Since if you haven't seen it yet, this was for my members only, but I'm gonna play it out to end the stream tonight. By the way, don't take off at the end of the stream, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to redirect you to Titanium Built, and you can let her all know that I sent you on over there. But let's do this first. I've been working on doing some little mini episodes of the podcast, uploading short form content. This is going to be a video that I've been working on. It's called Gilgo Beach, my little mini episodes. You can go in my homepage. I have 2 Bryan Kohberger ones right there right now. Take a look at them. But this is a 60-second clip of what I'm working on, and hopefully I'll have this out this week. Short form content. And when the stream ends, you will go directly to Titanium Built. Okay, let's take a look at my little mini series here. Oh. Welcome back, everyone, to another gripping mini episode of the LTL podcast. I'm Bryan, and today we'll dive into the chilling story that kept an entire community on edge for over a decade. Did he know that his time was up? The shocking case of the Gilgo Beach serial killer has finally been cracked, and the details are absolutely astonishing. So that is a little preview of my next video. Will be titled Gilgo Beach. And I got a lot of work to do this week, so I want to get that out. I definitely want to get that out. But anyway, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. The 2-hour mark. I do want to let everybody know this. I am making a very personal decision in my life right now. I want YouTube to be my full-time gig, and I'm trying to make that possible. I am preparing myself to leave a very corporate world and leave a lot on the table. I'm just been too much stress in that corporate world for too long. And I want YouTube to be my dream. I want to do this forever. I want to be a creator. It's going to take a lot. I'm still trying to get some ducks in the row before I ultimately make this decision to walk away. I will be leaving a lot on the table, and it's probably financially going to be scary for a while. I will have to work out those other details, but I want to make sure that I do it at the right time. I'm consulting with some friends. I'm consulting with some financiers that are just skilled in financial moves, and just making sure if this is the right time to exit, or if I have a short-term exit plan together. So I really want to spend my time here creating, and I'm not able to do as much work as I want to on my channel with the job that I have. And it's taking away, I just don't have healthy work-life balance right now. I've never made a decision like this at all in my life. So it's a very scary move for me. but it may be the right one right now. There's a lot of financial stuff that I need to work out to make this to happen. And I hope that I can make it happen. I'm not begging for money. I don't do that. If you choose to contribute to my channel, that's on you. I am not someone to go here and say, send me money, send me money, send me money. I don't do that. If you choose to do that, then that is on you. But I want to make this dream happen. So I have to crunch some more numbers. But it's going to be a huge decision in my life, especially, you know, I'm 45 years old. So it's different making a move like that at 20 when you live with your parents. And it's different when you make a move like that at 45 when you're on your own doing everything. So I really want to make this my reality. I love doing this. And it's just going to take a little bit to work out. And then it's going to take me the guts to do it, because it will all be on me in the end. So I'm still working that out, but I wanted to let you all know before I ended my stream tonight. I still got a long way to go, and I have a lot of details to iron out, but I'm working hard, and I'm going to put in as much time as I can to try to make this a reality. Let's start trying to work on getting some more guests on the show. Again, I have my $200 reward out there for each guest. If someone can get these guests that are close to these guests in any way to get them on for a half an hour to an hour segment, I will pay out that person that mediates that $200 reward in whatever way. Gift cards, we'll just do a gift cards, some American Express gift cards or something. We'll figure something out. So Harvard Lawyer Lee or JLR. If anybody can get one of those guests, I'll give you a reward of $200. So, okay, I'm going to end the stream tonight. Don't leave, because this is going to redirect you over to Titanium Built. I believe it just does it right away. I've never done it before, but we'll check that out. And please, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, like the stream. And I appreciate everybody being in here tonight. I will see you all soon. I got some work to do on my Gilgo Beach little mini, I don't know, it's not a documentary, a little mini movie. I'm going to be working on that probably for another 2 hours before I go to bed. Hopefully I can start getting the rest of it together this week and launch it sometime this week or by this weekend. I appreciate all of you here. Thank you for all the new subscribers that have come into the stream, all the new members that have been here, all the people that show up for the lives. I probably will have a live sometime this week. I've been scaling back to work on short form content for all of you. I got a lot to think about, and there's a lot of things that I want to do in my life, and YouTube is definitely one of them. So I will hopefully try to make some time and start crunching some more numbers and try to make this a reality. Hopefully. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. Here's the outro. Stay tuned by the end, because it will redirect you to Titanium Built. Let her know I sent you over there. I appreciate you all. Have a good night. See you soon.